One.
All right, I think we are live.
Definitely.
Yes, this is a funny one.
Yeah.
Last time we were here, we were talking with Matthijs van der Laar about starting an indie developer, releasing your first game.
And we're back in the new month.
We are back.
We're really holding on to the promise to show up every month, right?
Yes, it's quite tough running a game company as well and a music company, but it's great to do it. It's also our outlet to do this without having all these conferences.
Yeah.
So what are we about to do?
Well, throughout the industry and throughout our years in the industry, we've met a lot of interesting people. And as much as you can't travel right now or visit these events, I think it's very nice to start conversations about the industry nonetheless.
Yeah, because most of the time, if you're at these events, then you kind of have a chit chat, you have a beer together, and you talk a little bit about where the industry is going, a little bit about how the difference are between niche and AAA, for example, and how people do things. But this is now gone with this whole pandemic situation. So trying to pull that into this podcast, and we have a few very cool guests.
Yeah, and we have to thank our good friend Alexis for this, because it started out to have a conversation with him about this, and he thought together with us, like, wouldn't this be a nice opportunity to do a fireside chat, like a chat with more people and try to get more perspectives on the state of the industry. So think about where it's going into terms of Game Pass or streaming services, or how does indie and AAA and you know those perspectives differ until like for the industry. And he I think his network is very wide, and he got some very interesting people invited on this.
Yeah, he spiced it up a little bit. So, like last time, we did a talk with Matthijs van der Laar, and it was kind of one person. We have a few more people now in the chat.
And they're also already here.
Yes, they are already here. I think we should just dive into it and let them introduce themselves, and then we dive into the conversation about the state of the industry, but then also about what the future of gaming is.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh,
welcome, guys. Let me first say welcome, Alexis. Thank you for for doing this with us and inviting very interesting guests. We really appreciate it, and I think we can have a very nice conversation. Maybe starting with you. Who are you?
Who am I? So my name's Alexis. I'm currently lead producer over at Remedy Entertainment in Finland, in Helsinki. I've been in games for the last 16 years, and that's why I met most of the people sitting here today as well, in every different kind of shape and form. Some were colleagues, some I just met on events, some other ones we had partnerships with, so that is pretty much the background. And in a nutshell, very short.
Very nice. Well, welcome. I know you're always harassing me when I'm doing streams, but now you're in there.
Now you're in, man.
Maybe move up to the right. I'm not sure if that's also for the viewer, but go to Daniel.
Hello. Hi. My name's Dan. I work for a company called Boneloaf, who make a game called Gang Beasts. It's our first game. We're really new to the industry, so yeah, our game's been going for 7 years. I've been working for the company for 5 years, and it's been quite mental in the past 5 years, I've got to say. We never anticipated the kind of reception we've got and continue to get, and for a small company that's starting out, it's quite daunting, but we're slowly getting there.
It's Gang Beast is definitely passed my radar a couple of times.
Mental is a good way to also kind of describe the game as well. So I like that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, awesome. Great that you're here. Rinaldo, how about you?
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Rinaldo. I'm currently with Riot Games, only joined last year. I started my career in the gaming industry with Blizzard in 2004, went then on to Wargaming. In Riot, I'm the country manager, which means all of publishing and brand management for Central Europe and East is within my team here in Berlin. And I'm very much looking forward to see what this evening yields.
Nice. So, yeah, you can teach us youngsters a lot of things, how it goes there, I think.
Yeah, we want to be schooled, so that's good.
Yeah. And Tobias.
Hey, thanks for the invite. I'm Toby. I coincidentally started at Blizzard as well in 2005, so it's more or less now 16 years. I've been there for 7 years for the community team. Then I went to Pro7 Sat.1 Games, so we did something for Sony Online Entertainment. Left the industry for, I think, 1.5 years and worked for Sky, and now I'm working for Red Bull as head of gaming network. And as you can hear, it's a lot about gaming as well, but I would call it a second role, not directly with the developer anymore, but also still part of the industry.
Nice. Yeah, I always hear that when you try to leave the industry, something is pulling you back in. Is that something
always. I think so. Sorry but I think it's a pure passion project, and everybody who's in this industry normally it's all about passion for this.
Yeah, interesting. Thomas, well, I'm starting to feel intimidated now, man. With all these knowledge in here. Ian.
Hello, good evening. So my name is Ian Richardson. I'm Business Development Director at Sumo Digital. We've currently employ over 1,000 people across 11 studios now across the world. Worked in the games industry since 1984, back in the 80s day. Working at some of the well-known publishers back in the day, of Gremlin and Ocean and Rage and people like that. Been at Sumo for just over 5.5 years. It's kind of my role is to make sure that all of our studios are really, really busy. I think currently we're working on 34 projects with 21 different clients from Microsoft, Sony, 2K, they're the ones that I can kind of talk about. Wow. So yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Impressive. Maybe also good for our guests to have a short summary of what we did, because that's also very nice. Is KeokeN is started 7 years ago as an idea on the kitchen table together with my brother Paul Dietman in front of me. We are based in the Netherlands, so we had Guerrilla Games as our example of AAA that we thought, like, why isn't there a second developer like that in our country? And as much as there's a couple of outsourcing studios and a couple of well-known indies, we thought, like, let's take on that challenge and try to create a AAA developer. So we're now 7-8 years in, and we understand how tough this is. So
it started off quite optimistic.
Yes. We went through massive ups and downs, developing our first debut title, Deliver Us the Moon, that is now finally getting the full potential we thought it once had. And with that, we can continue our endeavors in the narrative, story-driven, single-player games industry, I think.
Definitely.
That's in a nutshell what we've done. And Paul.
Maybe to start off a question, because we are quite new to the industry as well. 7 years is quite new. Ian, you told us that you are quite long in the industry. I'm very curious in kind of like how you have seen it change over all these years when you started off and how it changed in this way that is now. So are there similarities, and what are kind of the differences?
I think there's been massive changes. I think back in the 80s and certainly early 90s, it was still deemed as a kind of cottage industry, very small. And I think, in particular, things like the media and what have you never really took the games industry that serious. Yeah. And now we've seen the boom, certainly over the last 15, 20 years with new platforms, more and more high profile, bigger projects, revenues. I mean, I think back to, probably 84, 85 in the UK, I think the games industry total revenue was around about 50 or 60 million pounds. Oh, wow. Compare that now to 4.2 billion just in the UK. I mean, huge difference. But it's still, the thing I like about the games industry is whilst it's very big, it's still fairly small. People are very sociable. We kind of, everyone, I don't know, it's like one big family, really. It's, it's why I love the games business so much, really.
Yeah, I do see a lot of camaraderie, even with big and small developers, especially on GDC. I see that many people are actually a massive help. Most of the time, rather than differently. Maybe Alexis, what do you think about that? Like how does that? What do you think about that?
The face is always the same, but the studios behind them change. So it's the same for like Tobias, Rinaldo, and that. I mean, we met 16 years ago at Blizzard, and then everyone went their own way and path. And there's always kind of maybe events or other kind of things where you kind of reunite, and it's a bit of a family reunion. And as Ian mentioned, it's really true. It's always the same faces at the same kind of points where you can meet them on any kind of big gaming event. And that's the nice thing about it. And I must admit, I think maybe not the additional 20 years that Ian has, but I think that has been a massive change. Like, I think for us, back in the day as well, entering the industry was a bit more of an accident, and you stumbled in it, rather than nowadays you have this entire kind of ecosystem around schools, universities, and other thing where you can actually study what they like to call game design, which is often just game art. But that's a different topic. But I think just in general, there's a massive shift in how the acceptance for one becoming a kind of more respectable industry has changed education and other things surrounding that.
Yeah, I see that happen.
Yeah. Now it's funny because if you compare it to the music industry, I think Ian, you said it as well. Like it feels kind of open sourcey. People tend to kind of try to help each other out in development and kind of share their knowledge about something. The music industry, because it's a little older business, seems to be a little bit more closed off. Rinaldo, like how do you find that if you compare it like to back in the day, in the past, if you compare it to now? Do you think it's still quite open sourcey than it was back in the day, or maybe even more?
Well, I think there's some to that, but also to not completely contradict what was said so far is you meet a lot of old faces or slightly used faces very often in all the events. But the thing is, the spice in every business is the new faces. And because if only the old faces would be doing games today, I don't think the industry would be parents were actually very open to that. They didn't understand what I was doing anyway. But at the end, it kind of led to a career because I've always been an avid gamer. And in my case, it helped me. But in the 80s, 70s, 80s, I'm pretty sure that there was the stigma on the computer gaming and on the whole nerd thing that this is not going to lead anywhere. And I think in the 2000s, we broke that hurdle. And being a gamer is socially accepted. To an extent where you could see last year now with the pandemic and everything, previous to that, there were so many studies how bad gaming is for everybody. Last year, suddenly there's studies left and right how great gaming is for everybody. It's really weird how everything changes. And yes, the old-timers industry, you see those faces everywhere and they are everywhere. But the new faces are the ones who are driving us into the new gaming era, because we wouldn't have that innovation without the new faces. one thing to being in the gaming industry, and that's one of the things I always tell people who join teams that never have been in the gaming industry before. I told them, welcome to the gaming industry. You're never going to do anything else in your life. Because once you're in the gaming industry, it's first of all super hard to get into any other normal business, but also you don't want to, because it's so awesome being with all these people.
Yeah, I agree. I think I can never do another job again because everything seems so dull.
Yeah.
Coming back to the unhealthy gaming habits, I saw that the World Health Organization just months before COVID released a statement where it was very bad to play a lot of games, and then because COVID hit, immediately they released a statement how good gaming is because you can meet a lot of people, and that's so, there's such a stigma. It's also in the Netherlands, usually they try to kind of pull out like the floor under you. If it talks about gaming, it's always about influences the wrong things, and we're so past that point where games are just one thing. It's so many, the palette has changed massively.
Especially in the Netherlands, the mainstream media tend to really lean on this, like, oh, this is addictive and this is bad for you. And that's also a bigger or broader sense of the industry.
If I may add on this, on this point, because I think it's super interesting. While working at Blizzard, we've seen this. I think it's some sort of a generation conflict. You see there, like the older generation had, the Beatles are so, I don't know, and for this one, we at Blizzard, we realized a lot of things that at conventions, parents were coming up to me and said, well, your games, they are so addictive and our kid is not going to school anymore. And then you say, well, that there's like this functionality where you can actually say how long your kid can play, like a timetable overview in the back end. Nobody knew about this, although it has been promoted everything, because they didn't really understand gaming. And it's interesting that you say in the Netherlands we had this discussion, because in the German-speaking regions, this is also like gaming is for kids. Gaming is not good for you. And then even my parents said when I joined the gaming industry and I showed them World of Warcraft, they were looking at me like if I'm totally nuts. They said, "This is how you earn your money." It's like this is why you didn't finish your studies. I mean, they knew that I was a very big gamer with my C64, Amiga, Super Nintendo, and so on. But it took them a while to understand, and they were totally supportive there. So I think there's a big change going on, and the pandemic, as you said, is also changing or adding into this.
Wow! So they really came up to you and said, like, "This is very unhealthy for my child," like on a show.
They were also making us responsible. That they also had the theory that the developers are briefed and psychological to make the game even more addictive. And in Germany, we had to say a game, if it's addictive, it's positive, and then it changed the whole. If a game is addictive, it's something really bad.
Interesting.
When did stuff like that come into play, that we had to start thinking about games becoming addictive, and then somebody needing to say how many hours is too many and too less? When did that start to happen?
Yeah.
Do they want to know?
For me, it was like, must be the early 2007, 8, something. Especially, sorry when I always refer to Blizzard and World of Warcraft, but this was really eye-opening to me. Yeah. And I don't want to talk too long because we have so many exciting guests here. This was like, because World of Warcraft was something, it wasn't particularly new because there were MMOs before, but it was the first one where everybody was jumping on, and people didn't know what hit them, right? Yeah. So, and then parents were like overburdened and didn't understand what media their kids are consuming and how they acted there. Yeah. And I think this is where they couldn't help, and then it's just human nature. What you don't understand, maybe you blame others, because I think it must be like for Rinaldo, Alexis, and especially Ian. I don't know. For me, it was like 2006, 7, 8-ish around.
Yeah, was it also that like the moment when people started to forget about forget about eating, forget about sleeping? That's when, like in the World of Warcraft of days, it hits like, the unhealthiness. And usually in the Netherlands, it's always bound to like crime. So when something happens or someone does something extremely like violent, it's always being like, he was playing GTA. Yeah, well. Millions are playing GTA. I mean, all of them. If GTA would make you a killer, I am the worst killer then right now. I would be, if it actually would harm me in that way, right? Sorry.
I guess games are just an easy target. Like I think Tobias mentioned already as well. It's something you don't understand, or a certain generation doesn't understand. And once you don't understand, it's easier to find the scapegoat, which in that case would be games, because that's the kind of the underlying factor. But games have always been around, right, in any way, shape, or form. And now looking at the recent years, of course, it's growing and growing. And it's kind of in the center of society now, whereas it was always on the peripheral at some point, similar like comics back in the day. Everyone is watching Marvel movies now in the cinema, right? So all these kind of nerdy, I can't remember who used that term, I think it was Rinaldo, was it? The kind of subcultures are now moving more into kind of mainstream and are becoming more acceptable. And I think the more knowledge you have around those, the easier it is to understand it and give it space. But yeah, it's easy to find the devil in something if you don't understand it, right?
Yeah. Maybe a question for Daniel. How did your parents take it when you set out to be a developer? I mean, our dad was very understandable, but
supportive, yeah.
My mother, it took some time, man.
No, I'm older than I look. I'm kind of similar to the thing that Ian said, where, you know, it was more you do your English, math, science, and then, you know, your ologies, you do your, rather than computer gaming is just a waste of time as far as they're concerned. I mean, they don't think so now.
Yeah.
But back in the time, they wouldn't have pushed me towards something like that, which is probably why I'm only in the industry 5 years. But it's been a great 5 years, and like everyone says, the community is great. There's not a lot of like back clambering, and there's a lot of genuine appreciation of other people's awards and stuff. So I second that. But yeah, parents wouldn't have pushed me into it at all.
So
sorry.
So when you started, were you intimidated by kind of like the industry on itself, or did you just start out of like a passion and didn't think about what the industry was at that time or the state?
No, jumped in with 2 feet first, because I mean, at the end of the day, our company kind of started sprinting before it could walk. Yeah. So you had to, and I mean, obviously it's a little bit daunting, but like they said, everyone here is beautiful, and everyone will help if they can. So yeah, it's been a great 7 years.
Awesome. And maybe for you, Alexis, you have been producing a lot of like big titles. Was there ever a title that was too intimidating, or was there like one in the beginning where you're like, wow, this is quite massive, I'm not sure if I can handle this? Or you're always kind of in shape for it?
I think there's always moments where things are kind of daunting in many ways, but then again, because you have such big teams around it as well, and it's always been a shared effort, so people are not excluded, or it's not like the weight of one thing is put onto your shoulders alone. So there's always help around you, and I think this is something that Daniel's been touching upon as well as the others, is that there's always support. Maybe within the studio, outside of the studio, there's always people you can turn to and get advice. So even if you don't have someone close in your own studio at the moment, there's always options out there, right? And there's no one is kind of turning that down in any way, shape, or form. It's always like it has a tremendously positive support network, I think, the games industry in general. If someone needs to be passed on because they're looking for jobs, or if it's projects where the support needed, I think there's just great people out there supporting any kind of efforts that you need, right? And I think that's a nice thing. And what Rinaldo mentioned as well is like, once you do games, you never leave. That's kind of true. Although I must admit that I think the first 3 years of making games, are the toughest, because I think the highest churn rate is still like between 3 or 4 years, where people can't really cope, because there is a lot of pressure as well. It's not like, I don't know what the image is like now. I guess it's better, but there's still often the image that we sit there, play games, enjoy ourselves, drink coffee, and have fun. You wish. If that were the case, then it would be easier. But it can be tough.
Yeah.
I guess Daniel can say a lot about that as well, especially in smaller teams. In larger teams and larger studios, it sometimes can go unnoticed, the pressure. But I think, I don't know. I don't know what the others have to say. Rinaldo.
Sorry, go. No, you go, Rinaldo.
No, because also, I mean, we can also talk about the darker side of the gaming industry in that context, because everybody's so passionate and everybody wants to be in the industry that it's very easy for organizations that are maybe ethically questionable exploiting that, right? Because then people in the industry might earn a minimum wage or very low for a top-notch job, but they're doing this because they love the industry, maybe they love the product they're working on, and at the end of the day, they are not getting the merit that they deserve. And you hear stuff like that happening in the industry. And this is also something that where we have our social responsibility within the organizations and the companies to make sure that that does not happen to our people or anybody in the industry. And to the topic about parents blaming the gaming industry for maybe the kids not doing the right thing, it's also our social responsibility to actually deliver content that is fit for our audiences, right? I truly believe that we take some responsibility. It does not mean that parents should be blaming us, because ultimately it's the parents who are in charge of education of the kids. But we need to admit that there's some things the parents just cannot control, and it's up to us to actually delivering the content that is digestible for the audience that we are addressing. If somebody is playing games that are 18 plus, there's nothing we can do about it, right? Or very little we can do about it. We have all the automation everything in the games to prevent it from happening, but ultimately those are the things where parents have the control over. But I just want, the point I'm making is, no matter what, we have a social responsibility to our employees and to our players at the same time.
I agree.
Daniel wanted to go.
No, I agree with what Rinaldo says, that, the industry and the parents have a responsibility, to make sure what their kids are doing. If you make a game that is you're made to grind lots and made to play it lots, you should probably make people aware of what is too much time, but so I agree with Rinaldo to a certain extent.
Yeah, I see that the game industry, like the possibilities get so I would say endless, but also it starts to get easier to make good games. It starts to be more revolving around designing them rather than programming all the tools. I also saw that as much as that passion within all the developers that start out kind of goes at the beginning you kind of don't know what that passion actually can do to you. So, for example, and we can see the example in ourselves, is that if you go too far in that, as much as passionate or loving the industry or the things you make is good, it can also be cursing you. And for me, that meant burning out eventually. How do we look at things? Because as much as the tools go and the developers and the designers go, I think this is also a very good thing to grow with the newer industry, like change also the work-life balance in there, like keep in check those things.
Yeah, I think making games is also quite addictive. We sometimes compare it to a game. So making a game is kind of a game on itself. But we try, because we are still quite new in the industry. We always try to lead the company into the most healthy way. Ian, maybe how did you iterate on that process when you started off and kind of seen like all these problems come up? How did you deal with those over the years?
Yeah, I think it depends on the organisation that you work for. I think, I mean, I can speak, about Sumo is the fact that we're a listed company on the London Stock Exchange. So there's certain regulations that we obviously abide to.
Yeah.
And certainly with what happened with the pandemic last year, one of the things that we've always been we monitor on a weekly basis is kind of how much time people are working. And that was when we were in the studio, but also when we went to kind of working from home. So we would get, identify, we have teams of people that just constantly monitor people that are, in our opinion, working too many hours because it was far too easy for them, because working from home, if they're single guy or girl, nothing left to do really on an evening. It's quite easy for them to just continue to work. We're very careful about things like that as well. I mean, again, talking about Sumo, things like with mental health, we've got all sorts of procedures. We've got kind of trained people, 30 odd people across the company, where they're kind of trained as health workers or mental health workers. And then also we have a 24-hour hotline. Just all these things that you put in place, because it's important. It's about the well-being of your staff. And ultimately, as a developer, you live or die by the team of people that you've got working at your company. So and going back to that kind of that balance of like work and life, it's really certainly for us as a company, we learned so much over the last 12 months going in from a work from home environment, where now that when finally this pandemic is over, people are not, it's not going to be compulsory that people come back into the studio. If they decide that they want to continue working from home, then that's because they've got their time back. They allow them to go and pick the children up from school and things like that. So it's but I can see from years ago where there was no controls, and I know that there's a lot of discussions about crunch and things like that. Back in the 80s and 90s, it was never really known as crunch. It was just like, can you finish this bloody game, please? We need to launch it. I remember back at one of the publishers I worked at, there was a really important game that they were finishing off, and the team worked literally 72 hours. Like without sleep. I mean, that's just crazy.
That's a massive game jam.
Yes.
So we I think as companies, we've obviously got a responsibility to all the staff, and certainly as a company, we put all those procedures in place. That's why we've got a team of about 22 people just in HR, just looking after people and their well-being and their health. It's key.
I'm gonna give a little weird twist to this, because as much as games, started from a point of how they originated with programming, it's today it's harder to spot how many people are behind such a thing. And I had this question with like a very artist type of developer, and she said, like, is it actually important for people to know who's behind it? And maybe this is more of a broad question, like, is the expectancy of the player, for example, changed over time? I mean, this causes also a lot of pressure of, for example, Impostor Syndrome, where you just keep going and you think you're not good enough and it's not good enough. What do you think? Like, how does that play into the industry today? Let's start with Rinaldo.
Well, I'm actually not sure about that. The thing is, just when you said, do we need to know who is behind the games and stuff like that, I'm just thinking back to, and actually a lot of things that we're talking about here is leading back to our old Blizzard times, because this is also where the industry kind of exploded and got the media attention, and actually everything started. And I just remember the three of us, we started actually not in game design or anything like that. We were in customer service and community management. But everybody at Blizzard who was working at Blizzard at the time that a title was launched was mentioned in the credits. And this is a huge motivational factor for everybody. I'm pretty sure Alexis and Tobias still has the collector's editions. And all of that. Look there, original classic.
I can see it. Nice.
All the devs signing, and I think we're still proud of actually having that. And I think that just adds to that. I'm actually not sure if I'm addressing and answering your question there, or actually remotely getting where you
no
want
worries.
to go. I just want to. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's important for the individuals who are working on something also being acknowledged that they have delivered to something. Imposter syndrome, yes, but people are aware what they're delivering. Some people are very delusional and think, okay, I actually single-handedly, made Control or something like that. But that's not true. They didn't.
No.
And everybody understands the role that they are filling in. There are very few people who are very delusional, and I think we should take care of the majority in the people and not always finding to fix things that are based on the lowest common denominator, because that's what we're talking about. This people who really don't contribute. The majority really contribute in the field. They are working for the gaming industry in their company to make that title and the company successful. So, and I care more about those people than those three people who probably are really not doing what they should be doing, but think they do.
So what do you mean with imposter syndrome? I didn't get this, to be honest.
I was trying to say, like, there's, for example, single developers that if you read like the customers, they say like, and I don't know why my game keeps scaling like this. You'll fix my game. And I remember that when I started playing games, for example, the first Tomb Raider, I was seriously looking where to go, finding some walkthroughs and saying like, oh wait, there's like an unshaded piece I can just walk into. That's like the actual main road. Or when anything didn't work, I was literally finding my machine like, apparently my graphics card's outdated. But nowadays I feel like the whole customer thing is being put on the developer immediately, rather than like, maybe your computer is really broken, or
you say people seem to be less forgiving.
Yeah,
I think the internet as well, just the fact that everyone's connection is different and they just expect games to work the same, especially if it's heavily internet dependent. It's difficult. Speaking from a support point of view, it's difficult. It's difficult to say whether it's your game issue or whether it's just their internet. I find anyway.
So does your community kind of treat you like, oh, there's probably hundreds of people behind this, so they should fix it within an hour?
Oh yeah, no, definitely all the time. People aren't aware that we're a small indie studio. So you get tweets that are just like, fix your game. And fair enough, but that's unhelpful information. Tell me what platform, what's happening. But people assume we're a massive company, but we're not. There's only like 9-10 of us. So, we're still quite small. And with regards to what you said about imposter syndrome, because we were quite a small studio, we kind of suffered from that a bit. I think it took me about 3 years to get fully comfortable as to what I'm doing. And especially with being a smaller studio, everyone has lots of different hats they have to wear and roles that they have to do. Whereas when you get to a bigger company, it's more specialized.
Yeah.
So, it's been a learning curve.
I did say the imposter syndrome thing because I thought this, because the communication is so direct nowadays, it can play into the hoax of that you're doing something wrong, or that you kind of keep working against those like never-ending task managers in your head. So, yeah.
The feedback is not only direct, it's most of the cases also anonymous. So people are hiding behind the synonym in the internet, and they can be very mean. And especially if you have a game, people work 5 years, blood, sweat, and tears went into that game, and there's one tiny bug. Okay, it might be bothering 1% of the gaming population, they are tearing you apart on social media, hiding behind fake names, caricature pictures or whatever, and they can be as mean as they want, and you just have to take it. And it's harsh. It's
yeah. For what do I pay my 13 euros, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So we had this on the forum quite often. And why are you writing in the forum? Go and fix the game. Yeah. Sorry, I'm no developer, So sorry, apologies. So.
Yeah, I can see that.
There's definitely, I think, I think this ties into what Rinaldo mentioned before about educating and having a certain kind of responsibility. I do think there's still a lot of work that can be done from the industry itself in educating people on how these setups and how studios are set up, how indie developers are set up, and what kind of manpower they actually have to handle that. And again, kind of just adding to what Rinaldo has mentioned as well, the community has become way more vocal just because they have the platforms. I can remember a TED talk in which someone mentioned, the internet does amplify voices that should never be heard. It's kind of funny, but it's true to some extent, because it is like a really small percentage of the player base that might become very vocal and very destructive in a way. And it's not like devs sit there and try to put something out to annoy people, right? We sit there for years trying to make things right. We put it out and do stand behind it in the way that, we put effort into it and we want it to succeed. So no one is there trying to build a broken game and put it out.
Yeah.
That's the thing that drives us, as well as being later on in the credits and being proud of what you actually have done and put out there, and just see, oh my God, this creation we were part of and it's being played out there. I think that is such a rewarding feeling at times. And then of course it does touch you if you get a lot of negativity around that. It can go really deep for some people. Some people can block it out pretty well, but others do get quite affected from that, because in the end we're all human beings, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, we had a discussion as well. There were like some people in the beginning of when we released the game, and they were not negative about the game, but they were kind of negative to grab attention. So especially since you're an indie, it's easy to grab some attention with negativity because you tend to react on it. And if you react on, let's say, a Ubisoft game for Assassin's Creed, you probably got a snowed under all these other reviews and stuff. So I also saw like a little bit of loneliness at some times when people start to spread negativity. So not being critical, but really trying to grab some attention.
Yeah.
So I think that's also sometimes the case when people just want a little bit of attention and try to search that with negativity. And that's quite sad as well, but I want to help that as well.
Yeah. I kind of want to bridge to an interesting part there, is that this has a lot to do with, for example, when people pay for a game, they have a certain expectancy, maybe behind the hour of play or price or where they bought it. And I saw an interesting change with our game, Deliver Us the Moon, that is available on Game Pass, new platform, of course, and as a sole product that you can buy in digital stores and also physical. And funny enough is that most players on the Game Pass or on Game Pass that played it were mainly always very positive. So it was mostly that they found out about the game that made them very like, wow, I didn't even knew this cool game existed. And I saw a full difference in when players do not directly pay for them and how their actual experience was. And maybe you can turn them over in a sequel or another game or whatever they can. They want to. They actually feel they need to help you out in some way. How do you guys take this? Maybe Ian, how do you see this? Like, how is this landscape changing?
In what way? What do you mean? Sorry.
More in a way, like, is this something you also see happening? Like, games being played a different way that kind of also changes the perspective of the customer a little bit?
I think you're right in terms of probably, where you were talking about Deliver Us the Moon on Game Pass. Yeah, I think, some people, because they've paid their $50 or $60, whatever, feel that gives them the God-given rights to actually criticize you. And it's very easy to criticize or be quite vile towards people rather than actually congratulate them and say, do you know what, this is a great game, we really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I think that does come down to kind of that the transaction, should I say, the fact that they've paid their money for it, and they believe it gives them the right to say whatever they want.
Yeah. So actually, it ties in also to the whole kind of store war going on with the Epic Game Store, with Steam, with what else? GOG Gaming. You have but Xbox Game, Stadia. So there's like a lot going on. So what do you think, Tobias? What is the future heading in the way we consume games? Is it gonna be like a Netflix model, or do you think there's like a different style?
Well, that's a question I was asking myself, and maybe it's age-wise where I think, this doesn't have any future, the Netflix and Stadia model. I mean, we can now see from the latest Stadia news that it's currently not there where it should be or where it has been expected. I think the difficulty is currently that compared to the 80s or 90s, that you have so many, the gaming industry blew up so much, so many people are fighting for the attention. It's also that the game needs to be in spotlight. What is the first experience you have with the game? What is the funnel? How do you get them in? What is the attractiveness? Because if you don't get your audience early, you may lose them, and then they're not playing your game. Which is if you sold it, I guess this is then fine. But if it's like a subscription-based model or a free-to-play model, then you're running into issues. So it's really about how to get the intention out. And cloud computing, or like how Nvidia is doing it, or Stadia. I guess for most people who cannot really afford to buy a console or like a huge gaming PC setup, for them it could be like really the future that they play like this. But personally, we all, I guess, enthusiasts. But for me personally, I still prefer to build my own gaming rig and play on the PC. And also, if you play competitive gaming, I don't see that the technique is advanced enough for latency there. If you just play shooters, where the reaction time is really not in my age anymore, but the reaction time is quite important. So so it's really difficult to say. So a lot of people were saying that Stadia is kicking off and making it, and I always had my doubts, to be honest. And but maybe it's just I don't know, an obstacle, and in 5 years they may succeed. So it's for me, it's difficult to see. I would really not like to see that, but I think the model you just said for the Game Pass, this is lots of big players are jumping on this or offering this, and also gives the possibilities that you stumble upon certain titles, as you just mentioned, and this could also be a possibility, and it's quite attractive.
All right.
Yeah, I think Tobias is quite right, because at the moment, I think for any kind of game development, we are fighting for the time of the player. It's all about time now. It's not how many games will we sell, but how much time will we be able to engage the player with the title we're working on. And I think that is becoming ever so much more important. When you look at Netflix, it's more the format. How long can you keep them in that kind of ecosystem? And I think for games in general, for the bigger ones, it will be shifting, because even some other studios I was at before is pretty much similar, right? That they are looking into building networks where they can present their kind of titles and how they can embed that. And
So Daniel, when you were creating Gang Beasts, did you take that into consideration, kind of game time and keeping them in the game, or was it really outside of a different perspective?
No, that was never our consideration. That required too much forethought. We just made a fun game that people enjoyed playing, and but regards to the industry, I'm all up for making gaming accessible to everyone, as long as it's for the sake of making it accessible to everyone and not for profit or gain, or to try, get your chunk out of the market, because you see it's you're going to make a lot of money. But sorry, I hope that answers your question to begin with.
No, it does. It does. I didn't expect anything else, though. I just was curious.
But but actually it leads to an important question. That in game development, I think those who start with a business model and not with the game design are those who are going to fail, because you cannot build a great game on a business model, but you can build a great business model around a fun game. And I think if you look at the biggest titles that are out there or were there in the past, I don't think they started with a business model and they were thinking, okay, I'm gonna become the next gaming billionaire with this title. If you look at PUBG, if you look at the origins of mobile games and stuff like that, those were just gamers who wanted to have an even better gaming experience that they had already in the games they were playing. And out of those, PUBG and other things came out. They didn't think about becoming rich, right? Same with Minecraft. I mean, the idea was just delivering fun to everybody, and that's how you succeed in the business, and not with a business model.
Yeah, I think Rinaldo, you're absolutely right. If you've seen games designed by KPIs, I've never seen a success because everything is right. You've seen like graphics is awesome, music is awesome. Somehow there are parts that are awesome as well. But in the end, you feel empty playing it. There's no fun at all. I mean, everything from the craft, from the art direction is so good, but it doesn't make any fun. And I don't want to say names here now.
Yeah, you can almost say like you cannot buy passionate creativity, like or have a model for it. It emits it. It starts to happen, and
funny enough, if you really throw like an infinite money on it and like the best people, it doesn't.
You get a good game.
It doesn't guarantee that, and I think that's beautiful. Also, kind of for indies to step in, to not have that intimidated feel that they don't have a chance or something. Maybe Alexis, for starting developers out there, what would you say to them? Should they dive into the game industry? Yes or no?
I mean, if it's a passion, why not try it out, right? It's with anything. If you're interested in a sport, you try it out. If you're interested in anything else, you try it out. You should definitely try it out. And I think indies are in a kind of better position than most of the larger studios or titans out there, just because you have way more creative freedom in kind of experimenting in certain kind of features and models and whatever might come to your mind, whereas just listed companies have it a bit tougher just because it's about profit at the end as well. And that's why you have like the 10th installment from some games, just because they know, all right, it monetizes in a way, we can get a certain kind of cash flow in from that, so we'll just do the same old. But there is a decline in the fun factor of titles, right? The more they are recycled, I think the quality does decline in a way. But if there's indies out there, if you want to start, I don't see anything really stopping you from experimenting with that. There's so many different platforms as well that make it easier, where you can try things out. Sorry, Rinaldo.
Well, I just wanted to add to that if you want to start out, and I'm not a game developer, right? I'm just in the industry, but I think that for anything that you want to start, you have to be honest and admit that you don't know what you don't know, and then actually seeking the help. And to anybody who is watching this and wants to get into game development and doesn't know how, ask. People in the industry. You can actually go in any Twitch chat and ask, is there a game developer who wants to talk to me? And somebody's going to be happy to talk to you, Alexis or Ian. Then everybody's going to be happy to help, but accept that you don't know everything and make sure that you get the subject matter expertise that is out there, because everybody's happy to share.
Yeah, I agree.
Agree too.
I still think that as much as you gather experience over the years by doing this, because when I was thinking about education, I always find it really hard how do you educate for game development other than I know how to do programming or, art and stuff. It's.
I always believe that it has to do with execution. So you can be in the hypothesis and think about it, but I think it also has to do with execution and not be too afraid of failure. It happens anyway.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm some ways shining it in a void. Where do we go? I don't know.
Yeah, it's quite scary sometimes.
Let's try. Let's try, because that usually lacks with a lot of. Well, that's maybe in our country a little bit where you really grow up very safely. You get your education. Your whole future is laid out for you. Like you can just go to this job and buy a house, have some children, and die. That's. Although in the real thing, when you actually try something new, that's where it also gets hard, but also.
Yeah, I guess it's also kind of a millennial thing. There's kind of this perfectionistic dream where you should make all these perfect steps. And within our education, especially in Holland, I feel that it's not really kind of portraying a path where failure is a good thing. So you kind of get punished for it. And then that's what makes us afraid to have that failure and trying to search a perfect dream that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
So... Is
that then games are the wrong thing?
Yeah.
This is one of the most unstable in this. Well, unstable is maybe the wrong word, but it changes really quickly. You have to adapt so quickly to different situations, and even one day everything can work out well, even for the company you're at, and then suddenly everything changes. Right? I think we've known people who've been there, and there's. You definitely have to fail to succeed later on. I think many of us have been there as well. That failure is part of the development, part of your path.
Yeah, it's kind of gone into it expecting to fail. I think it's the people that are really passionate about what they do, what they want to do. They're the people that tend to succeed. But be prepared. Not just for failure, but also to accept sometimes that what you're doing is wrong. It could be a feature in the game or whatever, and kind of rather than keep on persevering with it and trying to shoehorn it into the game because you've spent a load of time on it, be prepared to throw it away and start again.
Yeah, killing your darlings.
Well said.
Yeah, I they taught me that in school, killing your darlings. Now I really understand what it means.
the whole team understands that. Yes. No, but it can be tough sometimes, definitely. Yeah. But then also, I guess that's just builds the company and kind of the whole group of people, and you come closer together that way as well.
Yeah,
if there is an understanding and compassionate understanding for each other.
Yeah, I wanted to also, I think it was Rinaldo saying it doesn't start with a business model. It starts with an idea for a game or a design. Yes. And that's, I think most indies start like that, or a good project starts like that. But at some point you do need to kind of put yourself on rails for business, because if you lose that out of your sight, then it never actually, goes. You know, it's, and that's a little mix we experience. We are mixed, like passionate game developer and as much as
company.
Yeah, running a company and be a business dev. That kind of like I forced myself to walk up to people as much as it feels super uncomfortable. Still, every day when I see that. Maybe I want to know this from everyone. Maybe how do you do this for yourself? Because I always picture myself as like, okay, so everybody here in this room doesn't actually know in the basis form what we're doing on this earth. So that makes us very So let's move and let's. I think they're not gonna bite, and then boom, you just do. And how many times did you get told, "Fuck off"? That's really harsh when someone says that straight on.
In your head, it's always worse than kind of the reality. So when you approach people in your head, you're always telling yourself like, I'm probably not gonna be in the right timing or what at the right moments. So maybe Daniel, like, do you have experience with that kind of mixing company?
No, unfortunately not. Like I said, we kind of got pretty popular, so I never really had that like knockback, and I got very lucky in the industry that I was hired by friends, so I never had the opportunity to get told to fuck off by anyone. But so unfortunately not. Sorry. Hopefully somebody else can help with that one.
Maybe Alexis.
I've never heard it as drastic, but no, I actually haven't had that experience as well with being turned down in such a negative way. So Rinaldo unmuted himself. I don't know who has something to say. As it seems.
Yeah. I just want to add to that this is the cuteness of our industry. And if you look at every big company, they kept some of the cuteness of being in the gaming industry. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, you still get shit done. Because if there's a hurdle, we game the system. That's what we do. I mean, we always find ways around something because it's all in our heads, in our imagination. And if you have a great game, you will find people who have the business drive and can help you. I mean, if you want to be COO of your own company, drive finance and whatever, but you have no clue of that, then don't do it. Hire somebody.
Yeah.
But somebody who understands gaming, ideally, right? The worst is if you have a gaming company and you have a CFO who is not a gamer. That is actually the worst construct that you can have, which happens. But the thing is, we just get it done somehow. Even if you have 10 people in the room and nobody actually really knows what the heck we are doing here, at some point you get together and you just have a dungeon master and you run through that labyrinth of game design and you get it done.
Yeah. Nice.
And that's not happening in any other industry. Imagine that in banking.
Oh man.
No.
No, we still get it. Like even when we talk about insurances in Holland, they have no clue what the game industry is. No. It's really tough, and we need to explain it constantly. It's very hard to.
It's actually when it comes down to those things, that's when Paul and me get angry. Like we have to talk about insurances. Like why?
No, but you're right, Rinaldo. Like if it's not really for you, find somebody that can pick that up. If you are in the capacity to do that, of course. So maybe.
And speaking of the cuteness as well, just to chime in very briefly, I do have the feeling as well that everyone in the industry or who would like to join the industry, they often do have the possibility or get a chance to do so. I think that we're relatively open-minded when it comes to people trying to enter the industry. If you have the mindset, if you have the personality, if you match the kind of culture, the studio culture there is, and so on. Your CV doesn't have to be super perfect, but you get the chance and opportunity to do so at times, which is nowadays even more so because now that game design education is so widely spread and more universities, more schools are offering it, there's way more competition than there was during the times we were. Like, again, we stumbled in and we got a chance because there was kind of no one else there. But now you have so many kind of possibilities of actually learning and studying to enter the field that there's way more competition and it's becoming a bit more professional when maybe viewing that. But I think people do, even if they don't have that background, still get the opportunity and the chance to kind of enter and have a look.
I think it's also about expectation management, right? So you have, as you said, Alexis, back in the days, we somehow stumbled into this in different positions. And also, I think everybody got to know these people where they say, hey, I know how to program. I want to be lead programmer or something, or I want to design my own game. I feel like a game director because I can tell stories. And like any other industry, you have to start in the bottom and work your way up normally, right? This is this romantic idea that you have a good idea and you directly start on top bottom. I've seen the gaming industry comes a lot, but it's hard work to go there and you really have to learn as well. I mean, sometimes if you have this idea, you can really, really execute it. I think this is also where indie studios come in as well. But so this is a great opportunity there as well. So it's just learn from it and then always improve, and you will get there. I think this is what the gaming industry offers still.
Yeah.
Winging it.
Yeah.
Just go in it. Fully dive into it.
Yeah.
So maybe to talk a little bit about the future and stay with you, Tobias, is if you think about stuff like VR or kind of like these Ready Player One worlds, where do you think gaming is heading? Like VR and kind of like these all Omni devices and stuff. What do you think? Is Ready Player One a real thing? Should we invest on that?
Oh, I wish it would be a real thing, right? So, so I remember when I left Blizzard a long time ago, I was giving an interview and I got the exact same question regarding VR, and I was like, back in the days, I don't consider VR as something really gaming playable. It's more like watching things, because I was just thinking about if you play in a shooter in VR, you will get horrible neck pain, right? So it's but there are actually entertainment angles you can use. Like I think PlayStation showed it and made it public to everyone. I think VR is great. It's a great opportunity, but I think it's not still there where the industry would like to have it. For me personally, I like the approach with the sensors you can attach to it where you're located in the room. But for me, it would be, I don't want to have a clunky headset. I don't want to be connected with a cable. It needs to be wearable, right? Yeah. So the innovation you had with smartwatches or something like this, if it's really not somehow disturbing you, then I think it really has a chance. My personal bet would be I like the AR component, that it's really mixing with the real world. I mean, we have seen from the Google Glass, from Microsoft, this was the Minecraft thing where they were with gestures able to steal the Minecraft universe. And I think this could be the bigger thing coming up. It's always difficult to give these predictions. And as said, I would really love to live in or not live, but have an Oasis style and walk around there. But I think my expectation is too high. I would really like to feel it, and this will take a long time.
So a matrix pin in the back of your head is not your cup of tea?
Well, it feels uncomfortable, I think, right? So, as said in the beginning, I also like to do some outdoor things there, and experience the real thing as well. But I think it's getting there sometime, and maybe there will be like only contact lenses that have the AR included somehow. I don't know how they do with the battery, but this is something I would really like to have. So,
it does bring me to come to mind that how Gabe Newell was saying somewhere in an interview lately, where he says like, yeah, we got to go past these meat peripherals. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. So, but he meant like going neural, you know?
Meaning so we're skipping the VR sets, but we are going straight into the brain.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that, Rinaldo? Do you think that is something in the near future?
Well, I would say we need to give it some time. I mean, just look at 1980s when we started with gaming. And I remember me being in my early 20s, which was in the 1990s, thinking one day maybe I will be in the gaming industry and I'm going to make an open world game that looks realistic, you know? And I never believed it would happen, but now actually you have that. Everything looks super realistic, and that's also. I think anything that we can think of can happen. I mean, you can make dreams come true, because the dreams that we're living today or the things that we're living today were dreams 30 years ago, you know. And now we're dreaming of having AR devices that are lenses. I don't think that's unrealistic. I think that's going to happen at some point. If games are still going to be what we think today they are going to be in 20 years, I think gaming is going to be something very different. I don't think people are going to be entertained by the same things that we are entertained with today. I also want to contradict, I think Tobias said it with, let's say, PC master race and Stadia and cloud gaming. I think that's going to be a thing in the future, because standardized devices that are low cost, but you can experience everything awesomely. That's going to be, there's still going to be it's going to be something else, master race, that have dedicated devices at home that are even more powerful. But I think cloud could be the standard of tomorrow, because you can wear a basic device wherever you want to go. And if you really want to have a power device, you have that at home. But I
said it will come, but I say I don't like it.
Yeah, the thing is that gaming, as I said, that gaming is not going to be gaming in 20 years. It's going to be something else, and it's not going to be differentiate between gaming and entertainment. It's going to be video. It's going to be music. It's going to be the interaction with other people. It's going to be very different. It's going to be a bastard child of social media. and everything that you're consuming right now, because we're all competing for the one thing that every person in the world has, and that's their time. We discussed about it earlier, right? And we want to maximize the time, and we're going to be hyperactive in every kind of ways in interacting with each other. And gaming is only one part of it, but it's going to be all together.
Yeah, funny. We were talking about as well, like that the film industry, of course, now has a hard time. The productions are kind of closed up because of this whole pandemic. Then Epic, they released this great meta-human stuff. Maybe for you, Ian, do you think the movie industry and the game industry will fuse somehow?
Yeah, I do. I really do. I think, the movie industry is kind of, certainly it's gone through its troubled times over the last 12 or 14 months. And I think, things like what the guys at Epic did with Fortnite and, it's kind of really opened their eyes. And I think there will be, I'm finding more and more of the studios, the movie studios, kind of talking to gaming companies because they can see the synergy massively. And I'm not just talking about a kind of a licensing deal where, you have to give them $1 million to buy the latest, Batman movie or whatever, allow us to develop a game and publish it. But there is that kind of, I think different medias kind of merging together. I can see definitely happening more and more as we go forward.
I believe so as well.
I think there's already just adding to that. There's already crossover in the terms of narrative design, right? There's a lot of people that actually write Hollywood scripts as well as they're working for games studios. Now more and more, I'd say, TV productions as well based upon games and things like that, because I think they do lend into each other, especially when it comes from storytelling perspectives. There's a lot that can be learned from each other. If you look at Telltale games with the episodic kind of approach that was kind of not known as much within games and things like that, I think there's definitely potential. And just seeing, I think Ian mentioned that at the beginning, the growth of the industry and how it's overtaken almost any other kind of art form in a way. Like the industry makes more money now than Hollywood, music, sports combined, and I think there is still way more growth potential. And I think that is why Hollywood and the movie industry is actually eyeballing games more and more as well, because I think there's definitely crossover forms, right? Like on Netflix, there's a show with Bear Grylls that is an interactive thing that they had already before with, I can't remember the name of the show.
Black Mirror or?
Benders, Snatch Benders, something like that.
Yes. So I think things like that will happen more as well. And I think down the line, it's definitely possible that there's going to be way more learnings and synergies and whatnot.
Yeah, we haven't yet.
Also, if you see the Mandalorian with the set from the Unreal Engine they use, I mean, it's you can always see there is some certain crossover and exploring new possibilities, and the industry are really, say, helping or adding to each other. So.
Yeah, we're responding on Alexis on, and we haven't yet seen, at least I didn't, the 80 or 90-year-old gamer as much as they do read books and maybe watch some movies. The industry hasn't seen the full entirety of the human race, I think.
Yeah, right? Let's say if you go from a 0 to 100, so the industry is still quite young. And the new people that are born are getting raised with games. All the education is kind of being gamified as well. So it's very interesting where it goes. It's still growing a lot, I think, in the next 50 years. What is your take on that, Daniel?
It's I'm interested to see what it's going to be like in the future with regards to immersion. I'd like to think that when I'm in an old people's home, I'll just be jacked into a VR machine doing whatever I want to do. So I think that I think the technology is expanding quite quickly, and we might be able to get there. One can only hope, right?
Yeah.
But for that to happen, I think not only the gaming industry, but also the high-tech industry needs to do a better job in keeping the older generations up to date with the technology. Because I'm a little bit scared in 40 years, when I'm in my 90s, my kids are going to be on top of the food chain when it comes to technology, and I'm going to be, I don't know, maybe I'm still going to have my iPhone, and that's all I'm gaming with. And you can see that with our parents or aunts and uncles or whatever, how they keep up with the technology. And that is because the industry, the gaming industry specifically, was never inclusive of the older generations. It's always, the target audience is always the younger generations. Then we have our demographics, and everybody is in a segment. And then there's the one segment everybody forgets about. And that's the 50 plus.
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah, do you reckon we'll see a move towards like more elderly gaming as we get older and the industry kind of gets older?
Mm-hmm. Well,
but we have to.
It's
funny.
Mandatory, I think. I mean, we've also seen that, especially World of Warcraft was targeting a very big scope of generations, right? We had the 70 years old. I mean, you always hear these news, the 70-year-olds playing this and that, or the Skyrim grandmother is also quite popular there as well. So I think it's getting more and more. But when we are that old, maybe there's an entire industry aiming towards elderly gaming with a more charming name for it. So.
We apparently tend to hit 50 plus gamers that keep their notebook next to it and really go for the adventure. So they really write down everything they find, kind of like, Morrowind and all the stuff back then. And we get a lot of responses of that. And usually it's a lot older than we expected.
Yeah. We make a very old-fashioned game.
Apparently.
I think it's important to make games, and sorry to get into reference to World of Warcraft, but make it like a social thing, make it easy to go into, right? And so even elderly people know how to go with it, and then the rest comes automatically. And the beauty of gaming is that communities are mixed as well. Young people are to old people that don't know who's behind this screen, and I think this is also a very nice aspect of gaming.
Yeah, but because we grew up with it.
But I do agree with Rinaldo that we need to do a better job on taking these people with us on the journey and being more inclusive. I mean, there's exceptions, right? If you look at the Silver Snipers, the 70-year-old CSGO players from Sweden that even still compete on esports events, that's a different story, right? That's an exception to the norm. But I think moving forward, we need to do a better job in kind of taking those people with us on the journey as well and providing. That's why I think accessibility in games is becoming a big topic as well, right? Moving forward, I think that is definitely helpful.
Yeah, I think Tobias said Skyrim, Shirley Curry, who was also having had some trouble playing our game in the actionable moments. Something that's very not designed for, it's more responsive moment, but having more accessibility on that would help them. It usually is like, I don't know how this works, I can't control this, or, But if controlling a controller, Paul, we're very used to it, but it's hard.
But is it like because we grew up with it and we grow older as well, that let's say in 50, 60 years that we are kind of already trained to play these games? So when we are kind of in an elderly home playing World of Warcraft, we don't have that learning curve anymore. So if we want to hook like the older generation on it, like then we need to figure something out. But as we grow older, I think we still feel or have kind of we know the controls. We don't have that learning curve anymore, or do we? What do you think, Alexis?
All I can say is my dad tapped out as soon as I got more than 2 buttons. He was fine with the Game Boy. As soon as you got shoulder buttons, done. He was done-zoed. So
2 buttons. Yeah. So that's it.
Yeah. So Rinaldo, there's some moment where they say like, "Grandpa, Rinaldo, come here. Don't I need a screen for this or something?" No, just wear this. Whoa, Jesus! Isn't this drugs? No, it's not. Don't worry.
I remember what Dan just said. I was showing my father World of Warcraft and showing him the WASD controls, and it took him some time to get it. And then when I was using the mouse and that you can really go 360 in the environment, he was looking at me like, what the hell? No, that's too much to go away. So, but regarding the controls, and maybe it sounds like science fiction, but I think regarding controls for elderly people, maybe in the future there's something like a brain interface or something where you just think about what the character should be doing and then it's doing it. So maybe the focus is be more on the narrative, like what it could be a good storyline for the elderly people to compared to the younger generation. What is interesting or not. So.
I think there's like eye tracking stuff out there that can track eyes and they can, move characters and go through menus that way. I mean, the technology's there. It just needs, improving upon. So Ian nodding.
Yeah, I don't know if you have heard of a charity called Special Effect.
Yeah.
So I'm an ambassador for that charity, which is making sure that disabled people, whether young or old, have got being able to still kind of play games. And they use the eye tracking technology for some of the controls that they've actually got. If you Google them, it's a fantastic charity that does amazing work and getting very, very popular.
Nice. Yeah, I saw even who was it? That was like a guy who was disabled, numb from the top, like from the neck down, and he fully played the Deliver Us the Moon with his mouth.
Yeah.
Like all the way through. Like he finished the game. I found that massive impressive.
No,
there's definitely things we can learn from. Oh, sorry, Daniel.
Not a problem.
No, it was just kind of tying into what Daniel said with different input methods maybe in the future, right? Yeah. I mean, Elon Musk is already testing the implants. So that you can technically control stuff with implants, right? So cyberpunk, whatever you want to call it, that is definitely coming in one way we can't even fathom at the moment. So even though you say, I think it was you, Paul, before mentioning, we know how to play games now, yes, but that technology usually is quicker in developing than us. So the games and the input devices will change, meaning that catching up with that might be still tricky for us later on. I don't know.
Yeah, so Neuralink.
Yeah, I think we're very would be comfortable when it's still just readout. We're just without implementing it in your flesh brain, right? That's where it starts to be scary.
So where do you read it out?
Oh, just like you read out waves of your head, like as much as you can wear a hat for that, or when you do a scan in the hospital.
It's probably pretty scary for our generations, but for the new generation, it becomes like just the new norm.
Yeah,
it'll be like looking at your phone.
Yeah, strange how that is kind of picked up so easily.
Yeah. Is there anything you guys want to share in this fireside? Something you like to?
I like the entry of the discussion where we were talking about AAA and indie game studios. I don't know if this was something you mean with that, or you want to discuss about this. So. We were talking about the different ways of studios, how they're going, and what I found particularly interesting, and maybe it's something very normal, everybody knows what I'm saying, but I like how for me, it's the indie game industry that is driving the innovation, and the AAAs who's picking it up and maybe mixing these things, and I think this is super interesting to see with games becoming big budgeted and costing several hundred of millions, or like this, or and people are normally... Of course, there's some sort of risk management, and you have to understand what is going on, like with PUBG coming up. So I thought this is also interesting to see. So I would like to know how the others are seeing this.
Maybe Alexis, you can take it from there, because it's getting way more easy to with all the new tools that we have to. So I get like a little note here from the direction here, but so that we have 30 more minutes, right?
No. 10 more.
Oh, 10 more minutes. Yeah. Okay. So with technology catching up, do you still need a team of to build a AAA game of 200 people and above a 200 million budget, Alexis?
I always have my own kind of issues with AAA and how that's defined, because it's still very vague, right? And I think that is where one of the weak points, the Achilles heel of the industry, that we never really defined what AAA is, and to meet those expectations of players. hence why Deliver Us the Moon as well was kind of put into the box with AAA titles, and there's a different dynamic behind studio size, like you said, with employees, budgets, whatnot. So I think that's a bit of a thing we need to kind of overcome. But thinking of technology, and I think this is more for Daniel, the question, and how indies can innovate in the industry. I think, like you mentioned before, with Epic's MetaHuman and things like that, I think that will definitely provide the tools to be way more competitive on the next tier level in a way with bigger studios. That for sure. I don't know, Daniel, how do you see it? You're the indie here, and Gang Beasts.
I mean, with regards to the tools, yeah, there's lots and lots of tools that make it a lot more easier. I mean, for instance, we use the Unity engine. You don't need to know, C# to use it. It helps, but yeah, it just opens it up to everyone that thinks they can, make a game or try it out. And obviously, like, Unity is free if you're not if you don't make money off it. It's kind of free, so it's accessible to everyone. And yeah, I think the tools are available for people there. And like we mentioned earlier, the fact that there's so many more courses out there now, whereas when I was younger, there weren't many gaming courses, but there's now so many.
Yeah. So maybe Ian. So what do you think? Like, what do you think that the difference will be? Do you think still a AAA needs a budget like that? And is it intimidating for AAA that like smaller indies have these tools? Is it in any harm for them?
No, I think going back to what Alexis said, it's people have got their different interpretations of how do you define what is AAA? Is it based on because you've got 500 people working on it, or is it because it's costing 150 million? Some people will say, well, we're developing a AAA game, high production values, but yeah, it costs £20 million. What defines AAA? It's always been quite subjective, really. I think going back to what you're saying about the tools is fantastic. I mean, the fact that Epic were the first company that gave everyone access to Unreal for free. And then, people like Crytek and Unity followed suit as well. And those tools are only getting better and better. Yeah. And the thing is like the days, I think, have gone where developers kind of work on their own proprietary engine because there is so many engines out there. So why develop your own? I mean, obviously there is like Remedy with, their engine, but that's been developed over a number of years. But yeah, I think it's a fantastic thing.
Yeah. So how do we experience that?
Yeah, we have thought of doing this, but as much as the tools go, and I remember choosing for Unreal Engine after a while in another engine, and it was more or less like, are we reaching the AAA look in the first place? Yeah. And that's where Unreal was, of course, massively advanced already. And the moment Fortnite hit, I remember like, oh wait. Now we also can see like many of the updates we hope the engine can get. So for us, we commit to it, and of course there's like the reason it's a third-party engine or not an engine of yourself. Kind of, we can edit towards the engine. You can craft custom tools towards the engine, but still there is features you have to wait on maybe, and that would be an upside if it's your own engine. But up till now, I think we're very happy, and you just can't beat the progression on it as a sole developer.
Yeah, especially as an indie. I think, Daniel, you can agree on that?
Sorry, there was some big ginger giant cat talk in the chat. So I didn't actually hear what you were saying. Yeah. So apologies. I don't know what she said for the past 2 minutes. Apologies.
No worries. The cat is more important.
I understand. Cats are great.
It is great. No, just that. So we have questions. Sorry, I got like a little direction here from behind the screen. Yeah. We have some questions from the chat. Do you say that? Can you?
Yeah, I'll ask them for you.
Yeah.
Everybody can hear me.
You hear Daniel's voice now.
Bartway asked, "What is something nobody is doing but you would really like to see?"
Rinaldo.
That's a tough question. I would like to see something that I never dreamt of. That's the only thing, because it's really hard to come up with something that has not been done before, but you would enjoy doing or seeing. So I would be amazed seeing something that I didn't think of. And I think for the whole battle royale genre, I never thought of that. I'm not an FPS gamer. I'm not a shooter, so it's not really my thing. But I found it amazing how that took over the gaming industry by storm. And I would like to see something like that again. Nice. And I would like to see something happening outside of the usual suspects that are North America, Europe, and certain Asian countries coming gaming. I would really like to see something happening in MENA, and coming from those. They have brilliant minds. They have great developers as well, but we haven't seen anything coming from there. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
Good one. Awesome.
Yeah, and to hook on that, there was also a question about what do you feel from I Am Paris? What do they feel about China and other markets that are... what do you feel China and other markets are going to bring to the gaming industry? And as a follow-up to that, APAC, African countries, and Latin American countries are making big efforts to grow in the global industry. So do you have feelings that those cultures bring something new?
I think especially how China operates in creating games, and there's so much talent there and so many studios and so much resources that we see. And I mean, there is already a lot there. There's super huge games in the Western world that hasn't been even noted for normal people. And I think in the future, we will see lots of things coming up from China. And for me personally, I'm a big fan of Dyson Sphere Program. I don't know if you know, it's a studio from China who's with 5 people, which is a super great game, which I really, really like. And I think from China, we will see a lot of innovation in the coming years as well. I cannot talk for the other regions, because I think this would be you have to deep dive into how the economics work there. What is the current state of the gaming industry? Where do they focus on? Is it more mobile, PC, consoles? What is the platform? But especially China and maybe India, I guess we can expect a lot coming from there as well.
I think in general, it's just because they have different cultures to begin with, right? There's always kind of influences there that feed into that. And I think we'll see innovation in the way that Rinaldo mentioned. Something we haven't seen yet might come from any of these regions, just because they're embedded socially and culturally very different, that they might have ideas that we haven't even, we pretty much have never thought about. And I think there's a lot of change, especially Latin America with Brazil. There's been massive changes when it comes to the art side of things. And I think Ian can talk about India, that has a lot of potential when it comes to the art side as well. But even just looking at China now, because that was mentioned, there's this Black Myth Wukong that was teased, that has been done in Unreal, and it's a small indie developer, but it's beating everything that we've seen in the Western markets. And I think just from that perspective, and taking culturally different things as well and putting that in, that will cause other dynamics and dependencies there, I think.
Yeah, correct. I saw a developer from India who really struggled to actually enter the Western industry. Or when I read their story, I was like, wow, that's amazing. But the people in India are getting so well. You know, some of them are in outsourcing studios as well. And the game that turned out to be very good was Raji. That's what I remember. But that's very culturally driven also. And that brings a very fresh light to the game industry and stories and how they develop.
Maybe Daniel, what was the last game or kind of like entertainment product that you're like really impressed or that really surprised you in some way?
I think the water in Sea of Thieves blew me away.
Yeah.
Just the fact that, you know, if it's a pirate game, you got to make the water good, and yowzers,
Yeah.
the water's
Yes.
like, you just feel disorientated when swimming through it, which I'd imagine, you know, if you were swimming through thick water, that'd be the case. So, yeah, I suppose that'd be the last one, but I don't know. I just find the beauty in lots of games. There's always little touches that are just, mind blowing. But yeah, I'd say Sea of Thieves was the last one. Just the water was superb. I wish we had water like that, but you know.
Maybe that's a good one to round this off for everyone. Say, like, what's your latest title you've played?
Start with Alexis.
The latest title I played, I think the one I completed, it was actually Cyberpunk.
Oh, wow,
you completed Cyberpunk?
That I played through, pretty much.
Nice.
Tobias, what's the latest game you played?
Okay, the latest game I played, and I feel very mainstream now, or hypey, is I play a lot of Valheim lately.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
I saw that pop up on my radar.
Yes.
I had to get used to the graphics at first, and I was like, "Oh, cool." Then I understood.
The graphic is really, if you get into the game, you think, "What the hell happened to this game?"
Yeah.
Forget to turn on filters or something. Why do I see pixels, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, and this is the beauty about the art direction. Somehow you play about this, and it's not as important anymore. And somehow it all adds up, and it creates a very nice atmosphere compared with the music.
Yeah.
So this is a really nice narrative there, and it's So I can only recommend it.
Ian.
I feel quite bad actually, because it's actually a game that we developed, which is Sackboy: A Big Adventure.
Oh yeah, of course.
Awesome.
I just love the music and the characters and everything in it, and it's that's got me hooked at the moment.
We got a little Sackboy. Like, I have my action figures lined up high enough that my 2.5-year-old can't reach them. There's a little Sackboy there also on there, and she always asks me, please, can I play with Sackboy? So I always take it down for a moment. Nice. Rinaldo.
I have little time to play. I have 2 toddlers, which you might have seen. I tried to fend off earlier here. So I don't get to play much. I play some TFT and Wild Rift. I'm a writer. I like those games. I play those. The last one I completed, actually, that's before we had our first kid. So that was Witcher 3. That was the last game I really finished.
Nice.
Awesome.
Daniel, was Sea of Thieves also your last one, or?
No, the last one I actually completed was Wasteland 3. So, yeah, fun. Fun if you like your tactical XCOM-y shooters set in a dystopian world. Go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
As much as toddlers go, I do find some handiness in the Stadia platform. So I jumped into Little Nightmares 2.
Yeah.
That was pretty good, actually.
Very good.
Yeah.
No, and like Rinaldo says, like, there's not much, especially when you're in game development. It's very hard for me to commit to these very open world games. Although I like, for example, Assassin's Creed very much. It's still like the commitment is quite heavy for me to commit to something like that. So Little Nightmares 2 for me as well. It was a short game, and I can complete it. And I want to have that little feel where I feel accomplished with myself and completed a game.
Yeah.
A very, very good game. Very good.
If I may add to that, I played more before I joined the industry. Since I'm in the industry, I play less.
Yeah. I think
so for
the same.
last 17 years, I've played less.
Yes to that.
Well, that's also the interesting thing is, so many people in the industry, and you get like the dream comes true. You get a lot of games for free, but you don't have the time to play them. And there's so many awesome games out there. It's like, I remember getting Assassin's Creed, but didn't have the time to play it. So it's yeah.
I have to say, when we started the company and the industry in your first game, I didn't play anything anymore. But as much as you get used to it, and we're now 8-7 years in, then suddenly gaming popped up again, and I get to play a little bit over time. Kids are really crying for the attention. That's one thing, but I can squeeze it in somewhere sometimes.
Yeah.
Maybe a final question.
Yeah,
Alright.
sure.
To end on, from Bartway. How does a successful indie scale from their current title to something closer to A or AA or AAA even? So how to grow without having to eat all the money you made from the previous title?
Daniel.
I don't think we're even there yet. So I don't know, just improvement and progression and learning from your mistakes, like we said earlier. I mean, mistakes will happen. Just learn from them. I know me personally that if I make a mistake, I'll always remember that more than I will the non-failure.
Yeah.
So just that really. I mean, I wish I could answer better, but we're still kind of growing. So and I don't know whether I'd consider us successful yet. It's kind of our first game, and so just that, I suppose. Sorry.
It's kind of what Ian said as well. It's like a perspective. What is success? What is AAA? What is indie? It's really a perspective on it.
I would say, the hard part is like, if you don't want to eat all the money, like what's it for then? So, or you're going to invest it somewhere in, or so I think we really tend up or hold it up high that you just invest into the things you really love to do. And if that occurs a lot into the business or in the gaming, we tend to make a lot of games out of the success. So we don't necessarily need to eat it. So we can maybe scope down the project and you can say like, okay, so we're going to spend less on the game. But that's where it gets different and hard, I think, because when you do that, you also might fail on like, you're not really running on that risk reward feel edge where you get a very good game. So, but that's maybe different for anyone, but I think it's still, you have to know what you do with the part of the money that you wouldn't eat then, right? Or am I?
Yeah, you need to have a goal on like, why do you want that? For example, if you give it to yourself and you say like you want to earn a lot of, or you are in the position that you earn a lot from your game and you are not investing it, I'm not sure why I would want that. So for us, we would always put it back into the company because that is where our dream is.
Yeah, that's what we've been doing. We've been putting it back into the game and, into extra development, because when we released the game, it wasn't up to a point where it wasn't a completed article in our eyes, and that's the kind of good thing about gaming nowadays, that you can release something and then tweak it at a later date. So we put a lot of the money back into the development and to improve the game, and obviously servers cost money. So that.
Cool. I think I want to thank you guys for joining us in this conversation. So Daniel, Rinaldo, Tobias, Ian, thanks a lot for joining, and Alexis for arranging these fabulous gentlemen.
Yeah, also thank you, Daniel, who's behind the screen, and Julia for arranging this with us. Also thank you, Koen.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.
Thank you. Now, this is great. I hope we can do this more often to have kind of an open talk about these subjects, dive a little bit on the darker side and the light side of game development and the entertainment industry in general, I guess.
Hope you guys liked it.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the invite. It was super interesting.
Yeah, pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
guys.
Thank you.
Have a lovely evening and stay safe.
Yeah, stay safe.
Wash your hands.
And play games. Play games.
Yeah, and join the gaming industry. It's the best place to be. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Right, Paul. So that was interesting.
Yeah, that was a little different than what we did last time. So that we had one guest, which was awesome as well. But to have like this panel of experience is really awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I have to praise ourselves lucky that we can actually get these people in here and talk with us.
Yeah,
on the
we
industry.
feel privileged to have that with us. And I hope for the people that watch that they also kind of learned something from it or got like a little beat that they were having question marks about.
Yeah,
So,
maybe, sorry for a little rush, but we're still on a night clock in our country, meaning that we actually got to leave to make sure that we get home within time. So guys, I want to say thank you for watching, and we're going to see you next month with a new theme.
With another special guest.
Definitely.
Yeah. All right.
Bye-bye, guys.
Sorry.